So there was this one piece of advice I give to pretty much every new student, and it always gets a reaction. It's just a single, super simple instruction, but it honestly changes everything. Let's get right into it.
Yep, 3 minutes. Not 30, not 20, not even 10, just 3. 3 minutes every single day, no exceptions. And look, the first reaction I get is almost always surprise. Eyebrows shoot up. People are thinking, 3 minutes? Is that even worth doing? And that right there is exactly the point.
See, we have this really funny habit, right? We tend to measure how good our practice is by how dramatic it is. We think, oh, a longer meditation session, that must be better. Or I need to go on an intense retreat. But somewhere along the line, we got it all mixed up. We started confusing the quantity of our practice with the depth of it.
Okay, so let's really break the surprising instruction down. We're going to look at why committing to less is actually the secret to getting so much more, because this is where most people really, really get stuck.
This whole confusion thing, it leads to what you could call the ambition trap. We aim for this heroic, hour-long meditation session, right? But then, well, life gets in the way. And what's the result? We end up practicing really intensely, like once in a blue moon. But most of the time, we're not practicing at all.
I mean, let me give you a real-world example. A friend of mine, she used to fall into this trap all the time. Her thinking was, I just don't have time for a proper sit. So what happened? She'd just skip it entirely. But now she commits to just those 3 minutes most days. And honestly, the change has been huge. The consistency is finally there, and she feels better. And look, this isn't just some nice little story. There is actual hard science behind why this works. This tiny little habit, it's literally building something real inside your brain. So let's talk about the science of the small.
So the key idea here is something called neuroplasticity. It's just a fancy way of saying your brain has this amazing ability to rewire itself based on what you do over and over again. It is not about one big, grand gesture. No. Every single time your mind wanders, and it will, and you gently bring it back to your breath, you are physically making a neural pathway stronger. The big takeaway here is so simple. It's repetition, not how long you do it for, that rewires your brain.
I mean, just look at this. This shows you what your brain actually rewards. It couldn't care less about that heroic 45-minute session you somehow managed to squeeze in twice last month. What it does care about? That small, consistent 3-minute habit you show up for every single day. That is what builds real lasting change.
There's this perfect metaphor for this idea. Think of your practice like water wearing away stone. Yeah, you could have a dramatic, massive flood that completely rearranges the landscape in one afternoon, but it doesn't build anything that lasts. But that patient, kind of boring, unremarkable daily drip, that's what can hollow out solid granite over years. And your 3 minutes a day, that's the drip.
Okay, so this whole idea of consistency over intensity, it leads us to something that might be a little controversial. We're going to challenge a really big idea in the meditation world, the retreat. Let's talk about what I call the retreat fallacy, and why, get this, paradise is actually the easy part.
All right, I'm just going to come right out and say it. Meditation retreats, they're the easy part. Now hold on, that's not to say they aren't valuable. They can be incredibly profound, for sure. But I think we've put them on this pedestal, given them a status they don't quite deserve. So for a retreat, where you're meditating for hours and hours a day, if that's the easy part, then what in the world is the hard part?
And this just perfectly shows the difference, doesn't it? When you're on a retreat, everything is set up to help you succeed. Your phone is gone, the schedule's all laid out, there are basically no distractions. But in real life, your inbox is overflowing, your knee hurts from that thing you did yesterday, and this is the big one, nobody is watching. Nobody cares if you do it or not. So here's the bottom line. Literally anyone can practice in paradise. Anyone can find focus in a perfect, curated environment. The real test, the real practice, is whether you can show up in the middle of your actual, messy, complicated, beautiful life. The goal isn't to create a perfect little bubble for your practice. It's to bring your practice right into the life you're already living. And that brings us to our last big idea here, what real practice actually is. It has nothing to do with escaping the chaos. It's all about showing up right in the middle of it. The truly courageous part of this practice, it isn't happening on some silent mountaintop. It's those 3 minutes on a random Tuesday morning when you're tired, your mind is already racing about work, and you would honestly rather be doing anything else. That moment, that's where character is built.
And when you really look at it, the entire practice just boils down to this super simple loop. Step 1, you notice your mind has wandered off. Step 2, you gently, without beating yourself up, return your focus. And step 3, you just begin again. That's it. That's the whole game. It's never been about achieving perfection. It's always, always about the willingness to just come back.
Man, I love this quote because it connects that tiny 3-minute action to something so much bigger. You're not just sitting there. You are actively making a choice. You're deciding that the person you are becoming is someone who shows up, even when the person you are right now would really rather not.
So that's the question all of this leaves us with, right? The person you are becoming gets built in these small, quiet, consistent moments. So, who will you choose to be tomorrow morning?